within the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum immediately cancel the ongoing procurement process for the JKIA expansion public-private partnership transaction.
Very interesting scenes in the National Assembly yesterday during that joint sitting of Parliament where the President made his State of the Nation address yesterday. Interestingly, the same people who had been vehemently defending the President on these Adani deals were the same people who gave him a standing ovation when he declared that the same deal had now been cancelled. I tell you, these are the days of our lives. Karibu sana, this is the Morning Cafe on the 22nd of November 2024. It is only 33 days to Christmas Day. Today is the last day of KCSE. Only 39 days to the end of the year. Officially, the holiday season has begun. So yes, indeed, this morning the biggest discussion has to do with the President's State of the Nation address. And these are the people who will be looking at them on this later on the Youth Perspective today. Hans Rop, Cynthia Sienwa and Juguna Mwangi, governance and political commentators, will be in studio for that conversation. Do stand by for that. It is a Feel Good Friday, and today we'll be having our hotel DJ and comedian in studio at 8 a.m. Later on, some nice country music. Kang'ethe Collins, music artist, will be in studio as well as we continue the Feel Good Friday. So something for everyone throughout this show. Don't go away. So let's take a look at the headlines this morning. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Adani akunywa maji. I think this is the best headline this morning. Dili kati ya serikali na shirika la raia wa India zasitishwa na rais baada ya kubainika ana kesi ya ufisadi Amerika. The reason for that standing ovation that you've just watched. It is the same story on the People Daily. Adani deal, Ruto eats humble pie. Oh yes, same picture of the president. Interestingly, he used a teleprompter yesterday. He wasn't reading from papers. I've heard you, Ruto scraps all Adani deals. There's definitely excitement across board on this one. Standard Adani deals crumble. Hakuna kitu ingine tunazungumzia leo. The entire front page of the Standard has to do with the President's State of the Nation address, with the highlight being the order to stop the Adani deals. It's the same one on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Ruto forced to abandon Adani deals. And yes, at least the Daily Nation has found space for other things, and we'll come back to take a look at them. But definitely Adani deals and the President's order on this being the headline across all major newspapers. On Business Daily, it is also there. Ruto orders cancellation of Adani deals as a second headline there. But the big one on the Business Daily, Musk's Starlink fights predatory pricing claim. Jamii calls for probe in protest letter. Local farms are growing jittery about the entry of Starlink as one of the internet service providers. And it's going to be a game changer. Na watu Kenya wameogopa sana. Let's see what people are talking about in other countries in the region. We start off in Uganda. Fresh details on Besigye kidnap. It is still a big discussion point in Uganda. Speaking from Nuzira Upper Prisons, Dr. Kiza Besigye says the operatives who kidnapped him disguised as Kenyan security personnel and drove a Kenyan registered vehicle. It was until they crossed the border that the men switched from speaking Kiswahili to Luganda and changed to a Ugandan registered vehicle. So they were actually Ugandan, but they pretended to be Kenyan. They were speaking Swahili up until they got to the border. So kama ni Waganda, Ugandan security agencies or mercenaries or officers actually came to Kenya, carried out an abduction and went back, fine, it's up to them. But what does it say about Kenyan security agencies as well? Eh? Where were they? Kazi yao ni gani? Wanajua kukimbiza demonstrators sana, lakini ikifika mambo kama hii wanalalia masikio bure kabisa. On the front page of the Daily Monitor, there's also a lot of stories about the SGR. It is now all systems go for SGR construction. This is over 200 kilometers of SGR. Over 200 kilometers of SGR from Malaba to Kampala. And you can see an image there with President Yoweri Museveni there just looking at a picture of what to expect with the SGR. This is not the real one. They're still trying to build it. They've not even started. So the SGR is a big discussion in Uganda, but the abduction of Kiza Besigye, who was arraigned in Uganda, also a big discussion. Still in Uganda, New Vision, the SGR, big discussion there on the front page. Hindi picha, it's not a real train. They're just standing in front of a very big mural of what they hope the SGR will look like. How Standard Railway will change Uganda. It is a 10 trillion shilling project to be completed. Yes, in 2 years' time. So this is what they're hoping it will look like from Malaba to Kampala. So what they're hoping is that once the Kenyan SGR gets to Malaba, right now it's only at Naivasha. Once it gets to Malaba, then it can join up with this. So a lot of excitement around the SGR in Uganda as well. Kenya speaks out on Besigye arrest. It's also a big discussion there. The big story on the front page of the Daily Monitor. On the New Vision, the story is on page 6. Let's cross over to Tanzania. Incidentally, they're still talking about the SGR there. Lorry operators, SGR cargo runs will not hurt us. So they're still reeling from the launch of the SGR. Now other service providers who are using roads, and now their business is being taken over by the SGR, expressing different sentiments on how their businesses have been affected or otherwise. The Tanzania Truck Owners Association says the launch of the standard gauge railway freight services will complement its members' businesses and not adversely affect them as widely feared. So at least they're expressing optimism that this is a complementary service, the SGR, and not necessarily competition. So matters SGR still there. Central Bank blacklists 69 loan apps. You remember I think it was last year or the year before when this mobile loan applications in Kenya were really troubling so many Kenyans. Now they've moved to Tanzania. Central Bank has now blacklisted 69 loan apps in Tanzania. The Bank of Tanzania has banned 69 digital lending platforms and applications that were operating without the required licenses and approvals. And apparently they're also using the same predatory lending options that they had in Kenya. Tanzania to save $43 million after settling dispute with Canadian firm. That's another story. And why Tanzania is eyeing international students for its universities. That's a big news on Citizen. Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, kitanzi mikopo mtandaoni. Habari kama ile iko kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa The Citizen. Wanasema benki kuu yafungia wakopeshaji 69 wa mikopo mtandaoni kwa kiuka sheria. Wanalalamikiwa pia kwa udhalilishaji na utapeli. So they've been using some predatory lending ways against their customers, and now the Central Bank of Tanzania has cracked the whip. Habari zingine pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili la Mwananchi kule Tanzania wasema mchuano wa sera vyama vikitafuta kura za viongozi. The civic polls are coming up in 5 days' time. It's the equivalent of ward elections in Kenya. It's only that we carry out all our elections on one day. In Tanzania, the civic polls are conducted separately, and the presidential polls and parliamentary polls are conducted at a different time. So we expect the general elections next year, but next week on the 27th, they'll be carrying out the civic polls. So countdown, 5 days to go. Harakati za maisha Kariakoo zarejea mdogo mdogo. Following that collapse of a building in Kariakoo in Dar es Salaam, now life slowly returning back to normal, even as the rescue and recovery efforts still continue, albeit in a slowed down manner, because more or less it is done. So those are the dailies in the region and both locally. We'll be back to take a look at the local dailies in a short while. Let's come back home and take a look at the weather situation this Friday. And we start off, let's start off here in Kilifi. Holiday weather, nani alikudanganya. It will be raining the entire day. It is 26 degrees Celsius as we speak. Feels like 29 degrees Celsius, but it promises to be a very rainy day across the entire day. Showers and thunderstorms, no chance of sunlight until late in the evening from 5-6 p.m. Highs of 29 degrees Celsius. So it's a rainy day in Kilifi. Kama ulikuwa expect holiday, tafuta kwingine. Garissa, 24 degrees Celsius as we speak. Feels like 27, but it's a bit drizzly this morning. It will remain that way until about 9. Mid-morning, the sunny intervals, and with a bit of cloud cover throughout the day. Highs of 34 degrees Celsius, which is quite high. So kama kuna kunywa maji saa hii ile inanyesha kwa mvua, na huku baadaye kunywa maji tena ili usiweze kufaint. Hiyo ni weather ya Garissa. Tuende kule kwa wakulima Kitale, 16 degrees Celsius as we speak. A very mixed up day. Chances of drizzling, they're there, but a bit low. Sunny intervals for the better part of the morning up until early afternoon. then drizzling for the rest of the afternoon. Highs of 24 degrees, and that's about noon. So that's the situation there. This is a perfect situation to prepare your land. And for those who are harvesting, hii manyunyu inaweza kukusumbua kiasi upande wa Kitale. Makueni, not now. 22 degrees Celsius as we speak, feels like 25. Promises to be a sunny day, but with chances of a bit of drizzling. Not really rainfall, a bit of a drizzle, highs of 27 degrees Celsius. So more or less ile joto unasikia sahi utaisikia the entire day if at all you're in Makueni. Finally, in Nairobi, 17 degrees Celsius as we speak, promises to be a rather chilly day. Highs of 23 degrees, chances of rain in mid-afternoon from 2 p.m. all the way till evening. A bit of drizzling from mid-morning, but nothing much to worry about. A lot of cloud cover throughout the entire day today in Nairobi. So that is a weather situation. And so let's see if at all it's affecting traffic in Nairobi in any way. As at 14 minutes past the hour, this is a traffic situation in Nairobi, and I'm looking at the map. If you're coming from Thika Road, it is Nyue all the way past the Pangani interchange into town. Same situation for Kiambu Road, those using Kiambu Road towards town or towards Kiambu Road. It is looking good. Juja Road, building up slowly, areas around Isli. As you get closer to that Isli junction there, a bit of a traffic situation there, but nothing to worry about. Jogoo Road, it is smooth all the way at this time of day. Probably it will build up later, but for now, nothing to report from Jogoo Road as well. Mombasa Road 2, looking good all the way from the airport into town. It is green all the way. Langata Road 2 is looking good. Areas around Uhuru Gardens, Wilson Airport, nothing to report. Mbagathi Way looking fine. Ngong Road, yes, there's a bit of a build-up there at that junction at Prestige Plaza, but kawaida lights, but nothing to worry about. Finally, the other major tributary into and out of Nairobi, and that's Waiyaki Way, looking good also, both ways into Nairobi and out of this great city in the sun. So probably we'll take a look at the traffic situation at about 1:30 the hour to see if at all there's anything major. All right, before we come back to the papers, as I mentioned earlier, today is the very last day of the KCSE exams 2024. Today there's only one paper, physics paper 3, and that's a practical. Not many people do the physics paper. And so it means shule imefungwa officially. From now, nimekuambia, this is the holiday season officially kicking off this weekend. So all the schools will close at about 2 p.m. today. All the students, all learners will head home, and the holiday season kicks off officially. So to all the candidates who are sitting physics paper 3 today, that's a practicals paper, we wish you all the best. For those who have finished their papers, congratulations. Kama umefail ama umepita tutajua baadaye, but all the best to you as well. Let's now come back and take a look at the local dailies. Akunywa maji, sio mimi nimesema, ni gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Anasema dili kati ya serikali na shirika la raia wa India zasitishwa na rais baada ya kubainika ana kesi ya ufisadi Amerika. Interestingly, the energy CS Opiyo Wandayi had just said that, even if there's fraud cases in America, this will not affect the deals in Kenya, only for his boss to come and kiuka him a few hours later. And he got a standing ovation in Parliament. I tell you, our members of Parliament, hakuna wengine kama hao. William Ruto, rais, amesalimu amri na kufuta dili tata za mabilioni za pesa ya kampuni ya Adani Group kutoka India, baada ya mwenyekiti wake Gautam Adani kufunguliwa mashtaka ya ufisadi mjini New York, Amerika. Lazima kuna mtu alipiga simu akamwambia, boss, huyo usiguze, wachana naye. Shirika la laipa serikali alama ya da. Muungano wa mahospitali za kibinafsi Kenya, RUFA, ulifanya utafiti kati ya Novemba 9 na Novemba 12, na wakasema hapo mumeanguka mtihani. Majasusi waandama Gachagua, aliyekuwa naibu wa rais, anasema anaona magari hapo nje ya gate, magari tu fani. Mmoja alipata iko na leseni, namba yake ya ile inaitwa number plate ni ya lori. Duru katika makao makuu ya polisi zasema usalama hutolewa kwa njia nyingi. Hata wakikuja kukuchungulia pia hiyo ni security. Hivyo ndio. I tell you. Today is a Friday. People Daily, the big headline there. Matters state of the nation, Adani deal, Ruto eats humble pie. Sasa, don't beat a man when he's down. He leaves Raila and Wandayi with an egg on face. Yes, Raila Odinga had supported this deal. Opiyo Wandayi too had supported, and Opiyo Wandayi had actually made a declaration only a few hours earlier that the Adani deals in Kenya would not be affected by whatever is happening in America. Sasa amegongwa na mayai kwenye uso, according to yasema Raila Odinga and Wandayi with egg on face. Kwa Kiswahili tunasema amegongwa na mayai. All right, that's the only story worth mentioning on the front page of the People Daily. On the Star, it is the same. I have heard you. Ruto scraps all Adani deals. President directs relevant ministries to cease ongoing procurement processes and seek new partnerships. Hopefully, with the new partnerships, probably there'll be better public participation, and probably Kenyans will actually have a lot of confidence in how the deals are being conducted. The backlash against the arrangement had grown increasingly vocal, especially on social media. Kenyans had declared themselves and said there was actually a trending hashtag, Stop Adani. Elsewhere, a Catholic priest awarded PhD in Christian and Islamic studies. Listen to that. A Catholic priest has been awarded a PhD in Christian and Islamic studies. Now, this is very interesting because he's not just studying about Christianity, but he's also seeking to know what the Islam faith is all about. MPs reject bid to have counties share burden of revenue shortfall. This matters projection and matters county allocations. So today being a Friday, we have a special weekend edition for the Star, meaning that the Siasa pullout also is coming in. And today the big story on the Siasa pullout is battle for CDF billions, why MPs won't let go of money. Remember, they're competing now with even the counties, and they're saying more money should go to the CDF and not to the counties. Meanwhile, criticism of state by Bishop smacks of hypocrisy. These are just some of the stories inside the Siasa pullout for this weekend. Smart people read the Star, independent, fresh, and different. Let's take a look at the Standard, and yes, as I get the physical paper of the Standard, Adani deals crumble. So when it rains, what does it do? It definitely pours. So Adani had been synonymous with secretive contracts, the trick of impropriety. For months, including yesterday morning, government officials have fallen over themselves defending the multi-billion agreements. However, after the US indicated the billionaire owner of the company, President Ruto, during his second State of the Nation address yesterday, said enough is enough and cancelled the JKIA and Ketraco deals. The question now is, what are the implications of the cancellations? Will we be forced to pay a certain amount to this gentleman with an interesting face on the front page of the Standard just because we've cancelled the deal? Either way, the deal was cancelled yesterday and the president got a standing ovation inside Parliament. I think I should also clap for him. Congratulations, Mr. President. The Standard has also gone beyond that and given us some tidbits and highlights of the President's State of the Nation address, because one may think that the President only addressed the Adani deals. He talked about a lot of other things. He talked about the economic situation. He talked about measures in implementing measures that have been implemented so far to stabilize the economy. He talked about food security. He even talked about gender-based violence. Where he condemned increasing cases of gender-based violence, particularly murders of women by men. He gave an economic outlook and even mentioned some of the challenges, persistent hardship for citizens, especially in daily living costs. So that is the only story on the front page of the Standard. On the back page, they have a picture of Arsenal midfielder Kai Havertz reacting in a past English Premier League. Wanasema ligi. Premier League returns this weekend. So Leicester City will be playing against Chelsea. Arsenal will be hosting Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth against Brighton, Everton, Brentford, Fulham, Wolves, and I think one of the interesting games for this weekend, Manchester City will be hosting Tottenham Hotspur at 8:30 p.m. tomorrow. So for lovers of the English Premier League, a lot of action this weekend. Pale chini, Team Dogondogo, Southampton facing Liverpool, Ipswich facing another small team from Manchester later in the evening. Manchester United watakuwa pale Ipswich Team ndogo ndogo zinacheza Sunday, team kubwa wako pale Saturday. And that's the standard today. Tuendelee. Today I'm having a field day when Nyaringita is not here. Ruto forced to abandon Adani deals. The same story on the front page of the Daily Nation. I don't need to go over that again. Let me just look at the other highlights on the front page of the Daily Nation. Talk about state agents trailing ousted Deputy President Gachagua. Former DP says the state is trailing him for unknown reasons. Even as security sources said, the surveillance is standard practice. Yes. Hata ukiona unafuatwa, hiyo ni protection, ni security. Security comes in different ways. Sio lazima utuone na ujue tutakuprotect. Tunaweza kuwa tumejificha nyuma ya mti ndio tukuchunge. Matters diplomacy, why Somalia has declined to back Raila's AUC bid. Now this is a very interesting headline. And no one had ever thought about this. But of all the East African countries that agreed to back Raila Odinga's AUC bid, Somalia said no. Interestingly, Somalia initially had a candidate who pulled out and expressed support for Raila Odinga. It was a lady. She even came to Kenya and expressed support for Raila Odinga. Yet, Somalia says they already had a deal with Djibouti and they cannot go back on it. So, pole boss. Baba, hii ya Somalia haupati. Netanyahu faces arrest over Gaza crimes in Gaza. He's also getting space on the front page of this paper. US wants its citizens to avoid Haiti after gang leaders announce attacks. It's on the back page. And why lecturer strike is still on, despite 4.3 billion shilling offered by the government. That's the back page of the Daily Nation today. Tukiangazia matters business, Musk's Starlink fights predatory pricing claim. Now, let's, because this is something totally different. US billionaire Elon Musk's satellite farm Starlink has been accused of practicing predatory pricing or offering deep discounts and selling below cost to lure customers from its competitors in the Kenyan internet market. So, local internet service providers, including one Jamii Telecoms, which is a second internet player behind Safaricom, has asked the communications regulator to investigate the alleged predatory pricing. These are letter tabled in the High Court that's showing this happening. So what Starlink has done, they've come to Kenya, they're offering interesting speeds of internet. It is a satellite-based service provider, but now some of the competition is saying, apana, they're charging too low. Chunga watatuharibia biashara. Watatuharibia biashara. That's what is there on the front page of Business Daily. They also make mention of the Adani deals being cancelled. Other quick highlights on the ticker. NCBA takes over Absa Bank. 860 million loan at Unga Group. Elsewhere, I&M Group declares rare interim dividend, and Cyton seeks to block investors' compensation. Watu wa Cyton wanakuwa na shida. All right, that's the front page of the Business Daily. And as we come to the end of this newspaper review, let's take a look at the cartoons. The caricatures today, they focus more on the State of the Nation address. So here are two frames. On one hand, it's a State of the Nation, a caricature of the president holding a balloon. And why did they decide to use a balloon? Sababu kifanya tup, kind of promises, a balloon of promises. Yeah, it can actually be deflated or inflated further, and you can also just pop it, and it disappears. Meanwhile, there's a spate of the nation, not the state, the spate of the nation. Na kuna Mkenya hapa amebeba mizigo, imeandikwa fragile, fragile, fragile. Very fast going towards 2027. Yes. So this is a situation on the ground against the promises. That's the cartoon on the Standard today. Same theme on the cartoon on the Daily Nation, State of the Nation address. So we have a caricature of the president who has a chain on his foot linked to this huge load with Adani's face on it. So they're just trying to paint a picture here of the different issues that the country faces. So on one hand, there was those traps and the mouse traps and the Murima kingpin who was impeached on one side. You have the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate on the other. He has them under his control. Meanwhile, Parliament here, SHIF upside down, Adani, new university funding model. All these are the issues that the president is trying to address on State of the Nation. Meanwhile, as he tries to get rid of this chain from his foot. Hiyo ni gazeti ya Daily Nation. Sasa in People Daily, Stano's take na caricature of biblical Moses. Amebeba ile nini ya commandments, the plaque, anasema 11th commandment, thou shall not abduct. But then he says, Kenyans have already broken all the other 10 commandments. I hope they will keep this new one. They won't. They are already abducting people, including foreigners. So there's nothing. We've already broken the 10 commandments and even the 11th one to be break. Lakini sio mimi nimesema, ni cartoon just to People Daily, anaitwa Stano. Jina yake iko hapa, Stano 24. Sio mimi nimesema. Those are the cartoons this morning on all the dailies. So yes, that is as far as the discussions go. Of course, matters to do with the state of the nation dominating the headlines. In the region, they're talking about SGR both in Tanzania and in Uganda. But when you come back home, it's all about Adani, 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 Adani. Okay. There's some country music coming up later on, not Adani. Kang'ethe Collins, music artist, will be in studio. Do stand by for some country vibes later this morning. Also, Wahotel, DJ and comedian will be in studio as well. It is a Feel-Good Friday. But for the main discussion, this will be my panelists after the break. Political analyst Hans Ropp, political commentator and change leader at Nguvu Collective, that's Cynthia Asienwa, and Njuguna Mwangi, governance expert. So do stand by for this conversation. Are we going to be giving the president a standing ovation from his State of the Nation address? I'm VP. You're watching Morning Cafe. Let's now take a break.
This Sunday and every Sunday.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph,
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm, which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe this lovely Friday morning, the 22nd of November, just a day after the delivery of that State of the Nation address by the President, which forms the main discussions this morning, especially his pronouncement on the Adani deals, cancelling all the deals, both the JKIA leasing deal as well as the KETRACO electricity deal. So that's a big headline today. And even before we start, let's listen to the President yesterday as he gave the order cancelling the Adani deals from Parliament.
President William Ruto received a standing ovation in Parliament for his surprise announcement cancelling one of his most controversial multi-billion infrastructure projects by the Indian firm Adani Group, citing new evidence from investigative agencies and partner states.
And based on new information provided by investigative agencies and partner nations, that the procuring agencies within the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum immediately cancel the ongoing procurement process for the JKIA expansion public-private partnership transaction.
The cancellation comes after a United States court issued a warrant of arrest for Adani Group owner Indian tycoon Gautam Adani for alleged fraud and bribing U.S. government officials in a deal involving $265 million or 34.3 billion Kenya shillings.
The recently concluded KETRACO transmission in public partnership and immediately commence the process of onboarding alternative partners because these are important projects.
Immediately after the president's announcement, opposition leader Kalonzo Musyoka in a statement said the president's decision to cancel the JKIA KETRACO deal was not enough, as Adani is also involved in the Social Health Insurance Authority, now rebranded by the president to Taifa Care, telling the president to cancel the Adani deal in the health sector immediately. A section of MPs have also raised questions on the implication of the cancellation, saying Kenyans stand to lose money in the KETRACO deal, which they claim has already been signed, unlike the JKIA expansion deal, a claim National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi has dismissed.
The deal that was ongoing on the expansion of JKIA has been cancelled, and the other deal that is more dangerous and I think more painful to the people of Kenya, the KETRACO deal, because they had already entered into a contract. There must have been an exit clause in that contract, and that exit clause, whatever will be the fines that the government of Kenya will have to pay to the Adani Group, that is the money of the people of Kenya. It's a big loss, and these are losses that could and should have been avoided.
On KETRACO, I may not have the full facts, but I think they have made some progress. So I need to find out and see if there may be any cost implication. But for the president to speak, he has done his duty, he has done his findings, he has all the facts. I don't think we are exposed in any way.
The two deals that sparked public outrage between the government and Adani were the JKIA deal, worth 230 billion shillings, under the public-private partnership meant to modernize the airport, and the construction of power transmission lines under KETRACO with 96.6 billion shillings.
By cancelling the Adani deals, President William Ruto has confirmed to Kenyans that he has been listening to their concerns. In a month, his leadership has come under intense scrutiny. Apul Kamau, TV47 at Parliament Buildings.
And that's where we start our conversation this morning. And I'm privileged to have in studio Hans Rob, political analyst, and Cynthia Asienwa, political commentator and also a change leader at Nguvu Collective. Good morning, karibuni sana.
Good morning.
Now, Hans, you've been on this panel before and we've discussed this issue of Adani, and you are a staunch supporter of the president, just like members of parliament who have been defending the same Adani deals. Now, we see that kind of applause and standing ovation. And it reminds us of what we saw in State House when the president rejected the finance bill and the people behind him clapped. The same people who pushed the same finance bill through parliament. Now, the same people who've been defending the Adani deals and the decision to go that route are the same people applauding the president. What does that say about that kind of applause? Is this hypocrisy?
Good morning, Fred, and our viewers. I am still wondering the character of applause. It doesn't really hit me well. How much I've been a supporter of the president for a very long time, and whatever happened yesterday of the cancellation of Adani, to my understanding, is the idea of privatization is a good idea, but the company that was being given the business, that was being procured to do the business as corrupt cases. And I think that's what the president has done. The president hasn't said that privatization shouldn't go with JKIA. You say, let us get alternative ways. And it should begin immediately because the projects are important. Whatever we've always discussed here is the importance of privatization. So whenever there are some evidences to show that a certain company did not qualify or cannot be trusted to undertake the same project.
Yet these issues have been raised by other people, because before the cases in the US became public, we had issues of Adani's involvement in other countries as well that had been known to Kenya. And even with that knowledge, very senior politicians, including Raila Odinga himself, came out and defended Adani, despite that kind of record. It's only after the US charges that this has changed. So are we saying that it's only the US that is that influential to Kenya, that the US is now the eye-opener, that we could not see all other failings before until the US spotted it?
There have been accusations and failings of Adani that have been exposed, that we even have it in the media. If you Google about Adani, you'll get it. in the same way, there are also good things that Adani has done in managing several airports, even in India and other countries. So if you Google, you still get the same. So if wherever there are success stories of a certain company and there are also weaknesses of the same company, it doesn't mean that you have to kill. Whatever is, we've always shared and say we are all human beings, we do not have perfection. But now, whenever there is an accusation against you, and now you prove it by giving a public proofs by things you do, like whatever this gentleman for Adani has done in the US, it now gives a reason to pull off him as a contractor. But I will say this, the president must have considered, or even the ministry itself, that despite the fact that issues that are considered that Adani has not done it well, there are things that we can see it, that they have done it well. And therefore, I think if he had qualified all the procurement rules and procedures, then he had a chance to be given. But now we have a new case that is on board today. And therefore, I feel sorry for Adani and the issues that we never knew, at least much exposed now. Mm-hmm. So I want to imagine the situation whereby the president would have still continued to stand with Adani. It would have been much worse. But the fact that president also has made a decision to forward cancellation of their contract means despite the fact he listens to people, he also sees whatever is happening in the world. So the decision here that has happened today, we must give it a give and take. It's a 50-50, whereby there are things that we feel that Adani has done good, and there are things that they have done wrong. But from the current situation, it has exposed itself wrongly. And therefore, having US being one of the most partner with Kenya, is that whenever they have given maybe a certain communication that is not right about a certain company that is here to invest in a country, it means we have to stand with them. Even if I would want to imagine that if Kenya today exposes a dirt about a certain investor who is likely to do it in the US will still cancel them. So it means there's a partnership and things that they correspond together, and it may lead to whether they want to do it for the better of themselves, and therefore cancellations of such can easily happen.
Should we feel, Cynthia, a bit of sympathy for the president? He had pushed for this deal really hard. He had gotten his ministers, and even Raila Odinga, his now newfound ally, to do the same, meaning there was so much intent on pushing through the Adani deals. Then yesterday, in a State of the Nation address, he's forced to go against that. And then the same people who have been making noise about it are the same ones giving him a standing ovation. Don't you feel like probably the president was a bit confused at that moment?
I actually feel sorry, because you see, Adani is something that we've been talking about ever since we heard that our airport was being sold. Because for us, giving out our airport to Adani looked like we were selling out our JKIA. So that's something we've been talking about consistently for a very long period of time. And I'm surprised to hear him say that. I'm not really sure that the president is someone who actually listened to the ground. What if Adani did not have a case in the US? This Adani case in the US was initiated in 2022 by the FBI. And it's something that has been going on. So for them to come and now, say Adani is a fraudster, this is something that has taken a period of like 2 years to get to where we are right now. But for my country, I'm asking myself, like, must we wait for the US to do that so that we now come to our country and say we've cancelled all the deals? So I actually feel sorry for him. I'm not sure whether I feel sorry for the members of parliament, because it looks like we do not have lawmakers, because every time the president says something, they applaud. And then, because even for Adani, they applauded him when he said that. And we've had so many people coming out and saying, Adani is good. Surprisingly, even our opposition leader, someone we've trusted for a very long period of time, Raila Odinga, supported the Adani deal. And now when the president is now cancelling the deals in parliament, the MPs are giving him a standing ovation. So you're meant to wonder, like, what exactly are we as a nation? Can't we make our own decisions based on our own understanding on what we want? Can't we do our own background check of the people that we want to award tenders to? And is it for the benefit of our country or for the benefit of a few individuals who already have the say in most of the things that are going on, and then now they, whatever they say is what we do? Because looking at the cost implications, owing to the fact that some of the deals had already set pace, there are cost implications to that. We are waiting for John Badi to clear that out, because he said he's not also sure whether there are cost implications of cancelling such deals. So as a country, it now takes us back to we have a voice of our own, we have a mind of our own, and we have a sound mind of being able to make our own decisions, even without waiting for countries like the US to tell us that this person is a fraudster.
And that's a question now, because you may say that some people argue that the president has listened to Kenyans. But did he really listen to Kenyans? Or was he forced by the cases in the US? Because the front page of the Star reads, "I have heard you, Ruto scraps all the Adani deals." Was it as a direct result of him listening to Kenyans, opposition to the same? Or is it simply because something has happened in the US?
Fred, I think I would love to maybe to read how the media is giving us the headlines this morning. I would love, I was asking myself as I drive this morning to this studio, like, how do we put on our headlines? Okay? For the Adani deals, let's say, for what happened, it's not necessarily about that Ruto has listened to Kenyans on Adani. It's because there is a case against Adani. So and that's what makes Adani illegitimate to run this. Get it here. And I want us to get what the president said clearly. President didn't say there's no privatization of JKIA. He have said let us to Adani because they have a case. And therefore, let's go for reputable companies that can run the same expansion of the airport. There's something that people should understand. Yeah? There is no selling of airport. It is a privatization of expansion of the airport, and there are very big importance on what the airport can bring, other than running the way it is today. You know, when we have shallow thinking at times, we might imagine that the airport is being sold. And we live in a country today that people do not want to do research on their own. They depend on what somebody else posts either on social media or goes ahead and says it. And somebody else could be playing politics. I could play politics today to be against the government and paint it to look dirty. And if I have a lot of following, you will listen some of the responses they'll give, and it will be dirty. You've heard when you were discussing issues of finance bill here, many residents could even say that as we don't read, maybe Raila Odinga reads for us, and therefore whatever he says is what we are going to follow. And that's what we do as Kenya today. We need to understand the issue of Adani. They have a case today, and that's why the president cancelled. But the issue of expansion will go on. We are going to get another contract.
So looking forward,
what if they didn't have a case?
He would not have cancelled.
Yeah, you wouldn't have cancelled. Let me tell you one thing,
So
let me tell you.
Not necessarily listen.
What if Adani didn't have a case, which the US exposed?
So let me.
We have said that the president has now listened to Kenyan.
No,
because this is something that we've been discussing for a very long period of time.
Can I answer you now?
Yes.
If today there was never a case, it means that Adani would be eligible to run the expansion of JKIA.
It's purely because of the case.
Yeah, it is purely because of the case.
Let's now focus on this issue going forward, because even in the president's declaration cancelling the Adani deals, he still indicated that the government would still pursue private-public partnership in those two deals, the electricity and JKIA expansion programs. And also, as we do this, I would like to welcome Njuguna Mwangi, governance expert, onto the panel. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
We're still discussing the Adani deals, the biggest pronouncement by the president yesterday. So we're now moving on from what has happened to fine. We will still pursue private-public partnerships. But given the public sentiment, there was a lot of mistrust in the process. A lot of, I know the president did not necessarily listen to Kenyans for him to cancel it was because of what happened in the US, meaning that whatever Kenyans hold, the mistrust and the belief in themselves is still there, is still intact. How will this government navigate the PPPs to ensure that the public is in tandem and actually accepts the same? Is it possible, Njuguna?
Thank you, friend, for this opportunity. I think I was just listening for the sentiments by my colleagues here, and I look at the headlines of all the of our newspapers, and I feel like it's quite interesting that out of the whole State of the Nation address by the president, we have just taken one area and then we want to make it look like it is the only issue that that is actually happening in the country. I think right from the beginning, I would like to challenge our citizens that we need to relook at our patriotism, because let's first of all agree that this is our government. It is our government because we are the people who elected the government. And I'm very happy that our democratic space is actually improving in Kenya. And that is why you can see citizens are able to question their government. They are able to pinpoint the areas that they are not satisfied with. But then when we become a nation of negativity, that every action by your own government becomes something negative, I don't think that is the right direction to go. Because we had a lot of issues with these deals of Adani. Kenyans have complained. We have raised issues and concerns. And then when the president comes out and faces the people and tells the people that I've heard you and now I have to stop this deal, then we are here complaining again that we cannot trust our government. I think we need to be fair.
You say that he said he has listened to Kenyans and that's why he's cancelled. Do you believe that he cancelled the deal because he listened to Kenyans?
You see, we need to understand that there are institutions that we have in our country. And one of the institutions is the judiciary. Judiciary has pronounced itself and gave the conservatory order. And the president, based on that, and maybe considering the views of Kenyans, he feels that although this is a good program, although this is a good deal.
Was the decision based on the pronouncements by the judiciary? Because only hours before the president addressed the nation, the CS for Energy, speaking before Parliament, actually insisted that the deals would still go on despite what had happened in the US.
But you see now, the buck stops on the president, and the president pronounced himself that I have reason to Kenyans. Kenyans is also included the
Was the pronouncement as a result of the president being cornered by what had happened in the US, or because he had listened to Kenyans?
No, you see now, that is where my problem is with the patriotism of our people. Because why do you want Kenyans to believe that for us to do anything as a country, we must be coerced by other nations or other countries? You want to tell us that our government is not strong enough to even make its own decisions? It has to wait for the US and any other nation to coerce them to do anything? No. The government is very clear that we have cancelled these deals, and in fact the president was very clear that it is not because the deal is bad. Not actually the Adani deal, but it's not because the project itself is a bad project. But just because I have reason to Kenyans, and maybe I don't want people to feel like I'm not sensitive enough, I have cancelled this. The same president reasoned to Kenyans during the finance bill saga, and the president dropped the finance bill altogether. He never cared about what the representatives in Parliament had passed, but he felt that I have to be sensitive to the citizens. And sometimes as a leader, you don't have to, although we say that you as a leader, you have to be firm enough to take people to the right direction, to the place they should be, not necessarily where they want to be. But sometimes it's also important to listen to the people and feel them, feel their heart, so that at least you can be in a position now to bring them to help them understand exactly what you are doing, so that at least as you move forward together with the people.
I'm talking about the people, because the people still remain. And their sentiments about the Adani and the Adani or any other company taking over the airport, those sentiments are still alive. The president says they will still pursue private-public partnerships on those same deals. How will the president convince Kenyans, or which methods could the president use to actually ensure that Kenyans are satisfied with the process that is going to come in the future, so that we can be able to embrace these public-private partnerships? What can the president do?
First of all, it is important for us to state that, for myself to state that I'm a very patriotic citizen of this country. By the fact that I can come to a national TV and speak about issues that are affecting my country, it actually means that I'm very patriotic. I care so much because my country is my business. The president's pronouncement on the Adani deal has formed a basis of how we now go forward. Because many people felt like we were not listened. Because anytime someone would raise an issue, this Adani deal, number one, public participation. Citizens felt like we were not involved in the procurement process, because there has to be public participation for such a deal to be done in a country where people care for their resources. And because public participation was not done, that's why citizens were feeling like this is not a good deal for our country. And there has been a problem of communication within our government, where people are not meant to understand what exactly is going on. The reason why there are so many speculations about most of the deals that are being done, including the Adani deal, is because what if enough public participation was done, and what if enough communication was done just to make citizens aware that, number one, we are not selling out the airport, we are just procuring public and private partnerships so that we make our airport better. Speculations come into place because people are the ones, we have to find out information for ourselves. Nobody brings the information to us, and when people find out information for themselves, sometimes they are meant to understand how the information comes to them, regardless of where it comes. It might be social media, it might be people, when you find out information for yourself, sometimes it may not come the way the government wanted it to come. And now, going forward, how do we now trust our government, even on the other private-public partnerships that are going to come, considering the fact that many people right now, many people right now feel like the cancellation of the Adani deal was because of the exposure of Adani in the US. And the exposure has come after a period of 2 years with the US investigating Adani and his fraudster deals. How come Kenya did not even consider investigating, considering also, behind that we said that the process took a very short period of time, and then it was sealed and operations started. Procurement had already been done. So now, what if it was our government that investigated Adani before they took over these projects and brought to us the information that we have heard you, we have investigated this Adani, and now we know the deal cannot go on. And now the president comes and says that now I have cancelled the deal. That would appeal to the citizens to now know that our president has heard us.
Okay. Let's stop there, Kidogo, and take a break. When we come back, we continue looking at the State of the Nation address. Yes, Adani is a big headline, but the president talked about a lot more. We'll be looking at that after the break.
The biggest music festival.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips. And the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. We're still discussing the State of the Nation address by President William Ruto yesterday before the joint houses of Parliament with my panelists this morning, Hans Rop, Njuguna Mwangi and Cynthia Asienwa. I want to say that probably this cancellation of the Adani deals was a very late inclusion in the president's speech yesterday, because the revelations in the US only came out this week. And probably by then, the speech by the head of state definitely was ready, or was at least 98% ready. He must have, waking up today and looking at the dailies, the president must be shocked that this very late inclusion is what everyone is talking about, Bwana Hans Rop. Surely, the president would have hoped that his speech was much more than his declaration on the Adani deals, don't you think?
Fred, I do not want to support whatever you said. I want to believe that if there was no negative exposure of Adani, the president would have spoke greatly about how our airport is going to be expanded, and now we are going to get an expansion of transmission lines in Ketrako. It would have given a positive impact on how that is going to help our country going forward, as it is a good idea to expand JKIA. Unfortunately, is that today Adani has been accused, and therefore he went ahead and said we have to begin it again because the idea is good for the country. Therefore, we have to get another procuring entity. Meaning we have to get another, another company which can partner with Kenya and make the same things. So, we've made this PPP, expansion of JKIA and the Ketrako lines, to look like it is Adani. It is not Adani. Adani is just a company that is coming to do. Just like another company will come, now it has been cancelled. So the idea itself is good. You get it, eh? And there has been speculations about Adani. And now they expose dirty things about it. Therefore, it's going to be cancelled. And I want to tell you one thing.
I think we're actually in agreement, because what I'm saying is that the fact that Adani is on all the front pages of our headlines today, probably this is not what the president would have hoped for. Yeah. His State of the Nation address was way bigger and more important than just the Adani deals. For him to wake up and look at all the dailies today and just see Adani everywhere, he must be a bit disappointed, don't you think?
Let me just tell you, Fred, President would not have, maybe he might not have mentioned the name, he could not have mentioned the name Adani, but he would have mentioned the expansion that is going to be done in JKIA and the one that is going to happen at Ketrako. And let me tell you this for a fact, okay? We are packaging this to look like it is Kenyans who had gone against it. There are Kenyans who have supported it. we need to cover those Kenyans also and listen why they support the same idea. We cannot say that everyone in the country goes against whatever is happening in JKIA. I do not go, I support it. Nobody has ever covered me to give my facts about it, the way we cover the negativity about it. The expansion of JKIA. You get it? And lastly, get it this way. we politicize everything. Why? There is a lot of politics that is played in this game. You know, in Kenya, we have people who support the government and we have those who do not support the government. And we have those who correct the government because they want the best. There are those who every day will wake up to say anything to paint the negative, to paint the government to look negative. Therefore, what we need to observe going forward, Fred, is that let us appreciate whatever has been done well. And what has not been done well by the government, let us give on our opinions on how to improve. We cannot say everything is bad. We've seen it in the finance bill, whereby...
And I think, Hans, we're in agreement completely. I think you misread my question. Yeah. But it's because I want us to move to the other highlights of the President's State of the Nation address, because I believe it was way bigger than just the Adani deals, which have been given highlights on all the front pages. One of the issues they spoke about is matters health, universal health coverage. He even went ahead to give it a new name, Taifa Care. So we have also a story on the same, as filed by one of our reporters here at TV47. Let's watch the story about President's pronouncements on healthcare. Okay, even as before we run the story, yes, Taifa Care now. Is the president responding to the fact that people keep saying Shah, Shif, whatever? That now he decided, okay, fine, we probably need a better name for this universal. All the story is now ready. Let's listen to it first.
Launch of the Social Health Authority, a new scheme that has faced its fair share of challenges, with patients seeking health services being the worst hit. During his State of the Nation address, President William Ruto has acknowledged the challenges surrounding SHA, saying the government is committed to make the system work.
Healthcare system has historically neglected the poor and vulnerable, leaving them without any option, while private sector medical covers remained out of reach for the majority. This is precisely what we will correct through the provision of universal health coverage.
On the 19th of October 2023, President William Ruto signed the 4 health laws in a bid to enhance health service delivery among Kenyans. The Social Health Authority was then instituted to oversee 3 essential funds, that is, the Social Health Insurance Fund, Primary Health Care Fund, and the Emergency Chronic and Critical Illness Fund. President Ruto says these funds are instrumental in easing the financial burden incurred by Kenyans.
Over the past month, we have disbursed Kenya shillings 5 billion to settle historical debts owed to the public, private, and faith-based medical facilities, some of which have been pending for over a decade. Another 3.7 billion will be disbursed tomorrow.
The president has equally acknowledged the financial and human resource challenges faced by counties in providing healthcare. The Council of Governors earlier this week stated that SHA owed counties 9.1 billion Kenya shillings after remitting 3.8 billion Kenya shillings of the total 12.9 billion Kenya shillings debt it had as of May. Counties also owe KCSE 3 billion Kenya shillings.
It would have been easy for me to step back and leave this responsibility to counties alone. But that would have been a disservice to Kenyans and a betrayal to our constitution.
According to President Ruto, the defunct NHIF accumulated billions of debt caused by misalignment between contributions and the true cost of care, hence the need for Kenyans to enroll into the new Social Health Authority. So far, only 15 million Kenyans have registered for SHA. Additionally, the president has stated that the Digital Health Act will revolutionize Kenya's health sector by enhancing transparency, tackling corruption, and reducing inefficiencies. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47.
So yes, the president also introduced that new name, Taifa Care, which was not heard before. We've only been talking about SHA and SHIF. But still, it would appear the president is keen to defend the model and not provide the proper solutions, because It is a brilliant idea, and many Kenyans agree, yes, that's the way we should go, universal health coverage. What Kenyans have a problem with is a messed up transition and implementation of the rollout. It's almost 2 months later, things are not working out. Introduction of a new name, does that change anything?
Friend, I think the question itself is sounds very interesting because the way you end it, but does it change anything? Does the name change anything? And this reminds me of another discussion I was following somewhere, and I had a panelist trivializing the whole idea by saying that SHIF and NHIF, the cost that we are incurring to setting up the new system is just the cost of removing S and put H and N and replacing it with S. But I think, and I will still go back to the same issue I had raised earlier, that we have a problem with a lot of negative information going out, misinformation or even negative attitude towards anything that the government is doing. While I also blame the government on the issue of communication, which I am seeing nowadays they are doing everything possible to make sure that the information gets to the people, I still feel that sometimes it's good to look at all these programs that the government is doing objectively. Because if you look at the program on this issue of the SHIF and SHA, many Kenyans could not even differentiate between the two. Some do not understand what SHA is in. Others have even started joking around those terms. But when you look at the objectivity of this program, you realize that in the long run, Kenyans will really appreciate these programs. The only challenge that I see is exactly what you have raised. The transition, the process of transiting from NHIF to the current program is actually maybe the challenge that we have. But we must agree that for any new system, it is possible to have some teething problems. And if you look at, and I would like, friend, to challenge you that when you are dealing with people who are responding to you, ask them a personalized question and ask them if they have had issue with the health issue with their system, the SHIF and SHA. Because you realize that majority of people who are complaining about it are actually people who have not even tested it. Okay. You know why I'm saying this is because I have had a relative who has had an issue and wanted to get services of this program. And I have not had her raise any concern about it. Okay. It has not been okay, yes. And in fact, I'm happy that the president has never said that this system is good, because even yesterday's address, it was very clear that we are having some challenges in the system and we are working on them. We cannot say that we will only start this program when we'll be sure that everything will be running smooth. How will we know that here in this place, in this area, maybe we have a challenge? We'll only know it by practicing it. You cannot say that this program, we do away with it just because there were delays in uploading information of citizens. So if we only tilt our mindset and start looking at things positively, because sometimes we have sent a lot of negative signals to our people, to the extent that even something that is helping Kenyans, they still feel that it is not something good. Okay. It is important that Kenyans understand something here. If you look at the former system of NHIF, it was marred with serious and grave corruption matters. In fact, although I may not mention facilities here, I have seen and I've witnessed this in some of the facilities, health facilities, where you want to, maybe somebody has an issue, like you want a leg amputated, and then all you are asked is just go and come with the 3 cards, 3 people who are NHIF members, which are active, and even if, in fact, you are not even being amputated, the leg is not being amputated, but the medical facility come up with a report, a medical report that is wrong.
Make a claim, a false claim.
False claims. Okay. And then they claim from different patients. But in fact, you will see even, I saw another case where a patient went to a hospital and only to find that, according to the records from the NHIF and the rest, he has been amputated, he has had his leg amputated. He is not aware of such. These are just frauds that we are there. And then we are saying that we want to continue with the same system, and when we have an alternative, instead of looking at the positive side and looking at the big picture.
But Njuguna, no one is disputing that, yes, indeed, NHIF had issues, and there's need to change to a better system. And indeed, and I come back to listening to you, you were talking about Sha. Yes. Probably let's focus on the change of name a bit. Does that change anything? Because you're talking about the negative sentiment in general. Everyone's saying this she, Sha. And in itself, it has created something that probably sounds a bit comical that many Kenyans don't even appreciate. Was that, do you think, that was the reason why the president decided to coin a different name? And do you think that's a positive move that probably would...
I think the change of name sounds, it may also have some effect, because it may also bring some more confusion, in my opinion. Because I think I would rather go for explaining to the people what exactly SHIF is all about. Because you see, SHA is the authority, is the institution. But then this SHA has 3 different components. You know, if Kenyans can understand that with this new system of the social health insurance fund, we have 3 different funds, so that any Kenyan can understand that if I go to a primary facility in my dispensary there in the village, I'll be able to receive services without paying any coin. Okay. I think that is the most important thing. The most important thing is for Kenyans to understand.
So you don't see the necessity of a change in name, a new title, so that Kenyans stop saying this Shisha?
Okay, you see now, it may help, but in my opinion, the problem is not even the name. Some of us, even us who understand exactly what it is, you can hear us talk of Shisha. Just because we want to joke around with these things.
Do you think, Cynthia, probably that's because the president must have thought about it, for him to coin that new Taifa Care, probably something like Obamacare, Taifa Care. You would have called it probably Ruto Care. Do you think that in itself changes the public sentiment so that people probably stop calling it Shisha, even those who understand like Wandayi? Yeah.
You see, Fred, Kenya is a very comical country. Kenyans are very interesting, and Kenyans would want to make comedy out of anything, some just to look relevant and some to pass a point. So probably the people, there's been a lot of confusion about she, Sha. People don't understand what is now SHIF, what is Sha, what happens when it changes to Sha. And that's why some people came up with that comic, I think to pass a point that Kenyans actually don't understand what this whole system is about. And it is true. Previously, we've said that one of the issues that we have with our government is about communication. The reason why there will be so much confusion surrounding a system, a healthcare system like this one, which is not bad, it is good, but then people don't know what it is about. Probably if people were given, if there was someone who came up to explain to the country, without having to make people look like, for us who are asking questions are stupid, or for us who are asking questions, I just want to question the government. It's not like that. People ask questions, some because they honestly do not understand what she and Sha is about. We do not dispute the fact that NHIF had a lot of problems with regard to how people were getting treated in hospitals, making false claims. There was very many problems about NHIF. But again, probably if we looked at how to correct the malpractices in NHIF without necessarily having to change the name, that will still make sense, and that will still be credit to the president for having done such kind of work. But again, we recognize the fact that every leader who comes into government, they have something that they want to do, and they have something that they want to remain in their name. That when Ruto is gone, we will remember him probably for she and Sha and the rest of the things that he has done. But again, we address the issues. We are positive because he says that JKIA, which is now the new name, has teething problems. When a child has teething problems, when the teeth are now well established, we won't have those problems again. So moving forward, we are hoping that this teething child will grow and we will see the benefits of JKIA now going forward. If he will be able to now address the issues, because there's too many. He promised yesterday that one of the problems with NHIF was how payments were being done. So now everything is digitized, which is okay because the world right now is becoming more digital than it is manual. So we appreciate the fact that he has recognized that she and Sha actually have a problem, which when solved adequately and moving forward, of course, we are giving it time to see how far it will go. And then now we will say JKIA has worked for Kenyans. Okay. But we don't question because we dispute. We just question because we have seen malpractices and misinformation.
Very briefly, Njuguna, before
I just wanted to add that, you see, Kenyans are not so much concerned about the name and the title and such. All they care is, if I go to a health facility with a challenge, am I going to receive quality services? Am I going to get medicine? Am I going to have my bills taken care of by whether she, Sha, JKIA? They don't care the name so much. All they care is that I went and I received proper care,
but there's definitely
proper health care by the government, by my government.
Generated by when you say, because there's a difference between Sha and SHIF.
Not what I'm trying to say.
But when we keep saying she, Sha,
yes, I think that is in his wisdom. The president thought it is important to come up with a simpler term to coin all these together, and that is why we now have the JKIA. And I think you people from the media, Mr. Friend, you should help your government and your people to internalize that term of JKIA so that we do away with all this confusion. And you also urge the government to make sure that the facilities are working perfectly, and also the system is
you know, what Julius just said in the last bite of his word, what actually makes sense. President is in his wisdom and his thoughts might have thought that we need to get a more simpler word, more easy word, because, you know, one of the best way to make this Sha work is to make sure that people understand it and they register and they subscribe to it. So calling it JKIA, I really support it because I'm a business person. So whenever you want to sell your product, you must find a language that resonates with them so well, so it sells off your product well. So President is trying hard to share out what is the importance of having Sha and She registration of the new thing that is coming in, and therefore is bringing the idea of JKIA. So JKIA to me is a very good name. It's going to sell it more easy outside, and I want to say we should really support whatever the government is doing, because when we support the government that is there in place, we get more services, and therefore it improves our country ahead. You know, when I listen to Cynthia, she supports, and on the other side she wants to fight it. So it seems to be contradicting, because she says that there is a problem of communication in the government. There could be a good idea, but how they communicate is wrong. Now that she...
That objective.
And my question is, now that she understands that, she can help the government communicate. You know, the country is ours. It doesn't belong to Ruto alone. And Ruto even comes to resign today. There's no guarantee that the next president that comes has a perfection of communication or doing things well. Okay. I've always indicated in this station that we still have 3 years to go. These 3 years that are ahead of us, we need the president to deliver, other than thinking, oh, now we can vote him in 2027 out. We don't, it is not yet 2027. Another person can come. And let me tell you, just to also echo the words of Julius, is that the media should think of supporting the government. Because if you see the kind of things that President Ruto discussed yesterday in Parliament, there are many things that really deserve to be on the headline. other than Adani deals.
Bwana Roper, the question is, the State of the Nation address is intended to actually inform or report to the nation on measures towards achieving national values that are described in the Constitution, Article 10. It's not simply a reading out of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto and telling people we've done, we've done, we've done. It is something saying you could also admit failure at some point. Did we see any of that? Because many people believe that the president only came to defend the Kenya Kwanza scorecard. Yet there have been serious challenges that have even been made public, have even been told to him by the Catholic bishops and others, including, I can see even the Akorino Church came out yesterday to do the same. The challenges are there, people know. How come the president did not admit that, yes, on this one, we failed?
But I think, Fred, you have just stated it. You just answered that question yourself. When you said that the president came out and said, I have heard you on Adani deal. And you see, that is first of all an admission that, yes, I have heard you because you have raised issues on these deals, and so I am doing away with them. You have just said about...
But I thought we agreed that he did that because of what happened in the US, not because he had listened to Kenya.
No, no. You still have that notion? No, we agree.
No, Julius, I think Fred should go back to the speech again.
Yes.
How did the president begin? President said, we might not have... there are things we should have done. Go back to the speech.
He said there is new information. He said there is new information. We have
go back to the speech and listen to. He acknowledged the weaknesses.
These projects that we are doing are very good for our nation. And everybody here, even including those who are here in this studio, will agree that these projects are important for our nation. Then we know very well that Kenyans are very clear that they don't want more borrowing, or they don't want more taxation. And the only way now for the president to go to do this very, very important project is through the public-private partnership. And so the only thing he faulted is that I have heard you that you don't want to hear the name Adani. And so if this important project will go away just because of the name Adani, let me do away with this company. We go back to the square one. We get a new procurement. So I think we need to understand that our president, yesterday he was very clear that he agrees and accepts any objective criticism, including the fact that he accepted that this challenge of the universal health coverage, we have been having challenges in the systems. And he admitted that even though we have those challenges, we are working very hard day and night to improve on this. So I don't think we can just put a blanket condemnation to the president that he didn't accept any fault. In fact, what else do you expect the president to talk about? He was elected based on the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza. How else you don't expect him to come and talk about his scorecard based on any other person's manifesto? He'll have to use whatever he promised Kenyans, and he has to explain to Kenyans where we are so that they understand. Those, and in fact, it's only those areas that Kenyans maybe have not seen, they may not be in a position to understand. And in fact, the president was very clear with those things. At least he was able to shed the light to Kenyans on the successes that the Kenya Kwanza government has had so far.
Let's move on to another issue, and that is the fight against corruption, because this is something big as well. Because a lot of these discussions, including what we've talked about NHIF, about taking money to the counties, about even what the CS had said that we lose 2 billion shillings a day. Fighting corruption is a big issue. I'm looking at this headline on page 7, which quotes the president's sentiments on the fight against corruption, where he accuses state actors of sabotaging the fight against corruption. That's a very serious admission. It could be an admission of failure on his part, because it back stops with the president. Cynthia, when the president comes and says it is state actors doing this, he is their boss. Mm-hmm. He has the authority to hire and fire. Is it an admission of failure on his part?
Yeah, it's a recognition. It shows that he actually recognizes that corruption is a menace in our country. And And he actually knows that corruption is something that is going on. So I would really not put it as an admission of failure, but an admission that we're actually losing money to corruption, which means that systems have to work for us to be able even to, because Kenyans are being taxed on literally everything that we get from this government, we're being taxed. And the money has to go into work. But sometimes you find that the money has not gone into work because people are taking it to themselves. So it's an admission that things are actually not okay. That moving forward, we may not even be able to achieve what we want to achieve if we still have the problem of corruption.
So let's listen to what the president really had to say about this fight against corruption so that we continue the discussion.
In his second State of Nation address since he ascended to power, President William Ruto has reiterated the importance of fighting corruption, thus pledging to put a strong fight against corruption menace which has drained the country's coffers.
Amendments I have undertaken. This fight against corruption is one I now take on with resolve going forward. Let this serve as notice to all. Independent institutions charged with this responsibility must up their game, pull up their socks, and match up to the expectations of the people of Kenya.
But even as he vowed to fight the corruption monster in the country, he expressed his frustrations to Parliament for failing to pass the Conflict of Interest Bill.
Members, it is also unacceptable for the Houses of Parliament to deny the nation a much-needed instrument in the war against corruption by continuing to sabotage the passage of the Conflict of Interest Bill.
The delay in the Conflict of Interest Bill is occasioned by standoff between the National Assembly and Senate. The National Assembly rejected the Senate's amendments, accusing them of diluting critical provisions in the legislation.
We are in very privileged positions. We earn a very hefty salary. We do not need to do those tenders in government. Let us leave them for other people so that we do not have conflict of interest when you're oversighting the executive.
Track in terms of curbing and in fact eliminating it. It should be a zero tolerance environment or country. But what we are saying, the bill also should be realistic. So yes, we support the president on the matters to do with fighting corruption, but we have to ensure that we've got the right tools properly drafted so that when we sail it through, it actually achieves the purpose.
If I've taken my child to school and my child gets to the time that they want to do their businesses or they want to be employed, for instance, if they have to be employed, they are a legal person, they want to be employed by Parliament, is that conflict of interest? So we need to be very careful because law is made for human beings and law is made by human beings. It doesn't mean because I've been elected that my family cannot transact or cannot do any business.
The president now is insisting on the need for all relevant institutions to work together to ensure that they combat the menace in the country. Days after Treasury's yes, John Buddy confirmed the loss of at least 2 billion shillings daily to corruption.
There is also no reason for corruption cases to drag in our courts for years, when the same courts are able to determine election petitions and related disputes within 6 months.
The president also directed National Treasury to implement the long-awaited e-procurement system by the end of the first quarter of the year 2025. He lamented that the Treasury has delayed the implementation of the system for nearly a decade. After President William Ruto has pronounced himself on the Conflict of Interest Bill, the much awaited is to see whether Parliament will speed up the process. Elizabeth Motuko, TV47 Pump Buildings, Nairobi.
Well, yes, so this issue about corruption, especially coming after that pronouncement or rather confirmation, because the fourth president had said the same thing, 2 billion shillings is lost. It's about 720 billion shillings annually. The borrowing this year alone, necessary borrowing, is about 320 billion, about half of that. So the fight against corruption, if even successfully done halfway, would really take this country forward. Yet we do not get the sense, Bwana Rop, that this administration is heavy on the fight against corruption. The president has a lot of control of the Houses of Parliament. Are we saying that he's not able to marshal enough support to ensure that that piece of legislation actually sees the light of day?
Mr. Fred, there are a lot of improvement that the government has done to fight corruption. And I think all of us need to be very keen on whatever is happening to the country and even whatever the president said yesterday. All Kenyans need to be very keen so that we really point out facts that has been done to improve our country on matters corruption. And I was asking myself, this is what should have been on the headlines today of the newspapers. If you study what President Ruto has done on corruption, number one, let us see the evidence that has been given by KWS. There's been an improvement of collection of revenue from KWS from 5.3 billion to 7.6 billion. Why? Because there have been digitalization of revenue collection. In 2022, from what the president told us, is that we are 350 services of government that have been digitalized. Today we have 20,855. It means it has improved collection of revenue. That is the best way to reduce corruption that is happening in the country. Because when there is cash that moves from hands of people, it means they might not be fully remitted to the government. There are many things that have improved. These are some of the things that should be on the headlines of the newspaper to tell Kenyans that the country is heading on the right trajectory. Again, we've had the president complaining about the conflict of interest in parliament. Whereby now I want to ask the parliament, the way they have done speedy things, like the way they are impeaching the president and others, let them do on these issues of conflict of interest. We've also heard the president encouraging the treasury that by the end of this first quarter next year, they must ensure that e-procurement works fully in all departments of all departments of government. You know, Fred, the other departments of government whereby documentation is cooked, whereby there could be supply of certain products which people supply nothing, but documents are being cooked and payment done. So we need an e-procurement system that attaches and proves whatever has been supplied. That is going to minimize whatever the country is losing. And that is how, and that is how President Ruto is trying to do. Again, if you check, Fred, corruption is distributed to everyone in this country today. And we need to fight the corruption, all of us. As much as president is trying to do whatever he can do within the government, there are many things that are within us. Number one is that today as we drive on the road and your insurance has expired and you're heading to a meeting and you are stopped by a police officer, corruption works for you because you'll choose to either give 500 shillings or 1,000 to that police officer so that you rush to a meeting. You cannot say, let me abscond the meeting and go to a police station and be fined, or to a court and be fined so that I don't do corruption. Somebody who is applying for an ID, maybe in Tana River today, he'll be told, give me 1,000 shillings by an officer who is getting him an ID, that I'll push it, you get maybe within a week or 2 weeks. Let me tell you one thing.
I think it's impossible to fight corruption, because that's what I hear, that are probably entrenched.
Well, okay, we are not saying it is...
can do about it?
Let's withdraw the word impossible, because we have facts on the table that we are discussing today on the improvement of fighting corruption. What we are saying is this: as the president does his path, can we do our part as Kenyans? Can we say no to corruption? Can we stop removing our cash? Can we tell the Matatu guys to stop doing it? Can everyone stop? If we begin doing it, we will stop. Let me tell you one thing. Lastly, if you go to a government office today, like today, if you go to even KRA, you go to a department of IFMIS, you realize that as you want to be assisted, I've been to an office there in JKIA, in any JKUAT Plaza in CBD. You'll find there are 20 staff, but only 2 are working. The others are just on stories. And every time they serve you, they feel like they're helping you. They don't feel that they are paid to do. And therefore, and anyone who maybe has made an effort to help you feels that you owe him something. You have to give him a lunch because he's made your work issue. What we need to do in Kenya today is that if you have been employed, we need to see your services on perfection. We need to see good management. And that one doesn't need president. We need people, everyone who is working. It's all of us who are Kenyans, so that we can have
ideas and suggestions what we expected to hear from the president, because we do understand that yes, corruption is there. Now the president says that it is actually more rampant within state offices, and even especially when it comes to procurement and tendering by state officers themselves. Yet the question is, okay, fine, it's a good description of the problem, then what?
Friend, I think it is important we agree with the fact that as Kenyans, we gave ourselves a new constitution in the year 2010. And in this constitution, we have we created institutions, independent institutions that Kenyans gave themselves so that we see that things are the government or the issues to do with the public affairs are being run in the right way. And the reason why we say these are independent institutions is because we do not expect any interference, especially from the executive. Some of these institutions is the EACC, for example. And I think it is a high time as Kenyans now, we stop now because every time we think of corruption, most of the Kenyans just think about the presidency and the executive per se. But then you realize that even if the president wants to fight corruption, we have tied his hands with the provisions of the constitution because he cannot give directions or directives to the EACC, which is mandated to deal with those matters of corruption. And I expect that as Kenyans, we need now to start holding these institutions to account. We need now to start seeing Kenyans coming out and saying that enough is enough for the EACC, the DCI, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, because these are institutions that are mandated to deal with these challenges that the president is struggling with. Because we do not expect, in fact, we have seen these institutions being misused in the past regimes, whereby they are being used, they are being used to deal with political matters. But now, here comes a president who is very firm on the matters of corruption. He doesn't shy off from admitting the fact that his own officers have been corrupt in one way or the other. But then he cannot be able to deal with every issue of corruption if the institutions are not working.
On one hand, you're saying he's very firm on corruption.
Yes.
The other, you're saying it should not be upon him. It's up to the independent commissions. Is it okay to exonerate the president from this, to say that the president, he has nothing to do with the fight against corruption? He's firm, yes, but it's not his job.
No, I think, Fred, you need to get me clear.
He actually has everything to do.
I'm actually saying we don't expect him, because if we see him issue directives to these institutions, then we will start complaining that this president has now started getting into the space of the independent institutions.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, it is upon us all, the same way my friend here is saying, all Kenyans must help ourselves, not the president, help ourselves as Kenyans to deal with the corruption by ensuring that the independent institutions that we pay with our own taxes are doing exactly what they are mandated to do.
And how I'm concerned, is there a role the president should play in this fight against corruption? And what is that role, if at all there are independent institutions and he should not really give them direction?
You see, but friend, before she comes in,
that's
I think we've gotten what you go now. We've gotten what you've said.
By just declaring that as a firm stand on corruption, that shows that he has everything to do and everything to work with the institutions to stop corruption. And corruption has been a Kenyan problem for a very long period of time. It stems from way when we are children, the things that we are systemed to do. Now, every Kenyan believes that for you to be able to get services, you actually have to give something. Look at the many Kenyan graduates that we have in this country right now. Some graduated 5 years ago, some 10 years ago. They do not have jobs. Some of them have never been employed anywhere. And if you ask them, they will tell you, I do not have someone who can introduce me to someone who can probably give me a job. So for you to be able to get a job, it means that, who do you know? And the person that you know, who do they know? Are they senior officials in the government, so that they can introduce you to another person who will be able to give you a job? So it's a Kenyan problem that all Kenyans, together with our president, have everything to do with what is going on in our country in terms of corruption. And we can't exonerate the president and say that there's nothing he can do to the independent institutions, because now we will start again asking him, what is he doing inside the independent institutions. He is the president. He's the commander of our country. He has the right to point out those officials who are killing his government by being corrupt. He has a right to actually call them out and tell them, look, we are losing 104 billion. We are losing this amount of money every day. And in my government, this is not something that I'm happy about. This is not something that I want to see happening. Because when there is too much corruption in the government, all the services are derailed. Even the transition between this Shisha and Taifa Care will not be possible if there is corruption. Otherwise, how will we know where the money is going? And the problem is that if we are not accountable for the money that the government collects from Kenyans through taxation, Kenyans are very, they may not really like the taxation issue, but now that it's there, we're being taxed for everything. It means that we should now see the services that the government is offering through the money that we give them. So yes, the president has the right to call out the corrupt officials and tell them that you are derailing the services of my government.
All right.
Yes.
Let's now talk about one more thing before we end the show, and that President William Ruto talked about femicide and gender-based violence, and this is one angle from the issue of security. So let's listen to what the President had to say about GBV and femicide.
In his State of the Nation address before Parliament Thursday afternoon, President William Ruto has once again reiterated the country's commitment to ending gender-based violence. Ruto, confirming his knowledge on the ongoing prosecution cases, expressed his wish that the perpetrators face the full force of the law.
I am aware that most of these cases of murder of women by men have been investigated and prosecuted. It is my hope that in due course, those found culpable will face the full force of the law.
In a bid to strengthen the fight, President Ruto has instructed his deputy to facilitate collaborative, broad-based and multi-sectoral deliberations and recommend effective and radically affirmative actions proposals within 6 months. The proposals will fast-track implementation and form policies to strengthen the already existing laws on gender rights.
It also complicates, in disturbing ways, the struggle by Kenyan women for inclusion, for equality, for dignity, social justice, their rights, their protection, a section of our society that has been marginalized for a long time.
The head of state, emphasizing on just how crucial this matter is, has advocated for a more robust approach and relentless bid to achieve the 2/3 gender rule.
This parliament will recall that early in my tenure, I engaged the leadership of both houses with recommendations on a working formula to actualize meaningful inclusion of women in national leadership.
The president has called on the family unit, the church and the country's leadership to prioritize proper raising, growth and well-being of the boy child.
To do our part in raising boys into morally upright men who will never need to affirm their masculinity at the expense of women.
President Ruto Wednesday committed 100 million shillings towards the Safe Home, Safe Space campaign that seeks to end femicide cases across the country. For TV47, I'm Linda Alela.
Right. There are very serious security issues in this country, President choosing to highlight this particular one. Why do you think he decided to do this? There are many issues around security, focusing on gender-based violence. One may argue, and some may even criticize him and say it's a populist move.
If we listen to President Ruto's speech yesterday, he also mentioned issues about abduction. He also mentioned issues about illegal arrests, extrajudicial arrests. So I don't think by maybe reiterating more on the issues of gender-based violence, he was looking for any populist. Just maybe because he was from a meeting with the women leaders maybe a day ago. And it is just of good intention because, you know, the other ones, he has given direction to the institution mandated. But this one is trying to give more responsibility to all of us as a country, to our parents, how we are raising our children. And he must have given it more attention just to explain to every Kenyan that this is it's beyond me. Let us do it together, because you cannot understand why a boyfriend kills a girlfriend. You know, that is beyond. Despite the fact we can say, let us arrest this man, then there's another case coming, there's another one coming. What is the reason? It means, can we raise our children to be full of humane? Can we raise our boys that they can know that the energy that maybe God has entrusted them to be men, they can do it to better their country rather than maybe going after the life of a loved one. And I think to give my extension on that is that, Fred, let us encourage our young brothers, ourselves, of our generations, and even as we raise our children, let us teach them on the importance of respecting another human. Because it is going to help our country that we may be more concerned about each other, that we may love each other, and all these issues of enmity and killing each other will reduce. And it should go even both with both, it should cross both women and men. We want to advise our girls that when you want to fall in for this person, at least have good knowledge about that person. More, do not just trust somebody. We've had issues whereby a girl just meets somebody in town and they end up going to his house. You don't have any history about that person. Others, we've had cases of those who are driving Ubers around, and they give lift to our sisters and they end up going to their houses. It becomes a case. Others also is that our girls at times, we want to tell our girls to be patient about their success in life. Others have chosen to admire certain man because he drives or he lives certain kind of life, and he doesn't know how he makes this earning. Maybe he sells body organs. Therefore, you end up being killed, body organs removed in your body, being sold. And also to our men is that let us have a lot of energy. You know, at times, men, we cannot control issues. At times, a man might find that maybe a girlfriend is cheating, or probably their communication that might not be factual. And men at times do not have that stability of controlling themselves. They might overreact and do something wrong. So it's all about human character that we really need to have. And I think that's why President really, he did that, not necessarily for any popular reason. Okay.
But indeed, it was one of the most humane, or probably giving his speech a human face, because the other issues is talked about country security, food security, probably a very more direct issues about administration. But when he talks about gender-based violence and femicide, it gives the speech a bit of a human face, don't you think?
Yeah, in fact, I think this coming from the head of state is actually very, very important, because it tells us that this is a grave issue in our country. And as you have seen, the cases of femicide have really risen in the recent past. And I think it is also very important especially on the side of the parents, we also need to think of the way our society is in terms of parenting. We need to start a conversation on around how well are we in terms of parenting. You know, because if you look at all these cases, I think almost 90% of these cases, you'll find them, the victims are a young generation, very young girls, and who have been in the hands of their parents for not so for years, not for so long, for the longest time they have been with their parents, not necessarily doing their own things out there. Some of them are students, others are just fresh graduates. And I think this brings us to now the matter of parenting. I think we need to start this conversation of, are we becoming very busy for our children, especially our parents? Has the economy pushed us so hard that we are always thinking about working very hard for our livelihood and to help our Kenyans, our children for future? I think that is a big problem. And when it is coming from the president, I think it's also important that even the registrators, we start thinking of coming up with legislative interventions so that we don't just take femicide as just any other crime. We need to think around how we can strengthen our laws to deal with the femicide. At the same time, friend, I think it is important we also start thinking of, even in the schools, the curriculum that we have, we also need to incorporate, we start thinking of how we can incorporate development of values to our children, so that at least we don't just have children who are always thinking about the financial, their own finances and such. Those are some of the challenges that at least we need to address from the side of education, parenting and such.
Yes, it was very definitely one of the most important pronouncements he made, and Cynthia, you had the sigh of relief from lady members of parliament inside the house when he said this. So you get the final word as we end this news review this morning.
And on the final word, I stand together with the president in condemning the ongoing cases of femicide and gender-based violence. Gender-based violence does not have to do with women only. It has to do also with the men, because we even have men who are being abused and some that are being killed. But the statistics for femicide are worrying. And by the fact that the president came out boldly to speak against it, it means that this is a problem that we need to work together as a country and as communities to end. Can we just stop killing women? Stop killing women. Women are being killed in many arenas. Some serial killers are masquerading as lover boys, moving around in posh vehicles, seducing girls, and once they get into in intimacy with them, they kill them. So why would you kill them? Let us all stop killing women. And the president declared boldly, stop affirming your masculinity by harming a woman. You're not masculine enough by the fact that you've killed a woman. We are headed towards the 16 days of activism, which runs from 25th of November to 10th of December. Activism against gender-based violence of any form. But in the meantime, femicide statistics are worrying. Let us stop killing women. And it's rampant for women because I think women have been considered to be naive in a way. And some believe in the men that kill them. Some men who kill women are strangers, and some are people that they know. And it is upon the government also, owing to the fact that the president has spoken boldly about this, the government should also come out clearly and prosecute all serial killers, because some serial killers have killed people before, went to prisons. I don't know how they escaped, and now they have another case of another woman that they have killed. Stop killing women.
Okay.
Stop affirming your masculinity by harming women.
Okay.
It doesn't count. Let us all make the world a better place for all of us, for the men and for the women.
Yes, indeed. The president condemned the increasing cases of gender-based violence, particularly murders of women by men, in his State of the Nation address yesterday. Thank you so much, Cynthia Asienwa, political commentator and also change leader at Nguvu Collective, Njuguna Mwangi, governance expert, and Hans Ropp, political analyst, for your time at TV47 and for helping us understand at least the youth perspective following the State of the Nation address by the President yesterday. The address will be a matter of discussion and debate before the Houses of Parliament, I think, next week. So yes, this will continue being a major discussion going forward. All right, it is a Feel Good Friday right here at TV47, the Morning Cafe. So do stand by for a lot more after the break. Our hotel, DJ and comedian will be here. And later on, Kang'ethe Collins, some country music vibe. Do stand by for that. Shiksha Arora, my colleague, will be in studio to conduct those two sessions. My name is Fred Muli. Good morning.